This is the art of network engineering, where technology meets the human side of IT. Whether you're scaling networks, solving problems, or shaping your career, we've got the insights, stories, and tips to keep you ahead in the ever-evolving world of networking. Jeff, are you there?
We're getting there. We'll figure this out. Oh man, I wasn't kidding. My hair's a mess.
Sorry, everybody. This is my first time trying to figure out live streaming stuff, and I, as usual, have no idea what I'm doing, but we made it. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing all right. How's the audio?
Terrible as usual. We'll get you a good mic eventually.
Excellent. That's what I'm going for.
We can fix it in post, man. How you been? All right?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
It's Thursday, right? Today's Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Let me make sure our stream is working here.
Tomorrow's Friday.
All right, cool. All right, so welcome to the Art of Network Engineering podcast. My name is Andy Laptev. As usual, as always, as lately, I am joined by Jeff Clark. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hi. Doing well.
Hi.
Doing well. It's Thursday. Well, Thursday is when we're recording this. I don't know when everyone's watching it, but it's Thursday for us. And that means tomorrow it's Friday.
So I'm going to pause the show. This is why we don't live stream usually. Can you bring your gain down? You're going to be blown out, never modulated, and I'll never be able to fix it.
How's that sound? Better, better, better? Worse, worse, worse?
I think better. Go down a little bit more.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. You tell me when to stop. Right there.
Say hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
I think it's good. All right.
Does it sound like garbage?
It's just super modulated. So in your gain, how high up is it? From 0 to full? Like, is it halfway up?
Currently it's at 0.
You're all the way down?
Yeah.
No kidding. All right. Keep it there. Say something.
All right. Something. I mean, I don't know what else. Well, hold on. Maybe this is gain. Maybe I'm playing with the wrong button. I don't know what this one does. Just make things
Turn
better
that one all the way
for
down.
you.
That's the one. Now you're gone. So turn it back up so we can hear you.
Okay, how about now? Better, better?
Sorry, folks. Yes, now all I can hear is the fan running behind you. It's awesome.
Glorious. I can't hear that.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, we'll get there eventually.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging in there while we figure it out. So real quick, I am going to pull up the PDF that we are going to study off of. I'm also going to pull up my VS Code and my terminal, and then we will actually start the show. So when I edit this in post, it will be way less janky than this has been so far. Let's see, VS Code. I'll give us a proper intro and all that. Visual Studio Code, there it is. There's VS Code.
Oh, I figured out how to pop the chat out of YouTube. That's great.
Oh, yeah. So would you be able to monitor the chat possibly?
I will.
I will do an awful job at trying to navigate the text and VS Code and also reading chat, and it will show. So if you could monitor that, I'll drive the content. And then obviously I want your input. You were automating 15, 20 years ago, however long it's been when we worked with each other. And I know you like to downplay what you did, but you had the stuff in your bones a long time ago. I'm trying to kind of get caught up, level set. I realize the importance of automation, and I really want to understand a Python script eventually. So if you see me struggle, if there's anything that you can see, or like if you want to do some vibe coding and show me a different way, great. But the goal of this is just to get us through as much of this text as we can get through so that most of us can see how Python is accessible and it's not scary and we can figure it out. And we can't, we won't be like Andy, who for 15 years said, I don't want to. Because as I've said before, I use the NetMiko library to log into a router and do a show version. I'm like, oh, this isn't brain surgery. This isn't bad. But of course, I was scared. So, all right, let me, I got this up. I got that up. You're going to monitor the chat. Looks like we're still streaming out. So I will get us started, and I guess I will share a screen too. Okay. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. We're going to actually start this thing. Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering podcast. My name is Andy Laptev, and joining me in this Python party, our second Python party, is Jeff Clark. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Andy. Actually, I watched the first video completely. I know you did that one on your own, and it looked like it was you were having so much fun. I was like, you know what? I got time. I can come in here and I'll at least be a fly on the wall. Watch you go through it, and maybe I'll learn a thing or two.
I appreciate that. So this is what we've affectionately named the Python party. Why are we doing this? Why are you here? I have been struggling. I've been mostly complaining about learning coding, dev, automation, specifically Python, because that seems to be the most accessible, easiest to learn, most networking automation friendly language that I'm told exists. And I just signed up for every course and everything and every 100 days of this and 50 days of that, and just struggled. But I was recommended this book, Python Crash Course, Eric Mathis. I don't know Eric. I haven't spoken to him. He doesn't know I'm doing this, and I don't know if we're going to get in trouble. But I think that it's good, ink or coverage for them that we're covering this. So very smart people who know Python way better than I do said, this is the book, this is what you need. And when I read it, I'm like, oh, this actually isn't bad. So in our first Python party session, which if you missed it, we're going to start editing these and releasing these. So it was live streamed. I apologize if you watched that, because 40% of it was me struggling with troubleshooting. And when I listened back, I'm like, wow, this really is hard to listen to. So I'm going to tighten it up. We're going to try to release these as episodes. This is a new thing. Like we said, 2025, trying a bunch of new things. Jeff is on board. This is a new thing. If you love it, let us know. If you hate it, no problem. We'll do a few. We'll see what we can get through. If these don't translate great to podcast episodes, then maybe we'll just do it separate videos up on the YouTube playlist. And then, we'll just go back to the old format of topical interview conversation type things. But I love this technical stuff. This is super applicable to our industry. Things are changing by the day, by the month, right? There's just things going very fast. And I think if we want to stay employed, we have to learn the basics of Python. That is what I've seen in the industry. So Python Party 2. Last week, we set up our environment. So we installed Python 3. You can go back to that episode and see it if you missed it. But we installed Python 3. We went in our terminal. We typed in Python 3, enter, no space. And we got the three little, I don't know what they're called. I'm going to get all these terms wrong. But the three little greater than signs came up, which tells me that we're in the Python interpreter. And then we ran something to see that it was working. Yay. And then the book went on to tell us that, well, you can do things in the interpreter. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think as you write lines of Python code in the interpreter, it's executing immediately. Whereas if you use a text editor like VS Code, you can work on a block of logic and then run it so that it's not going line by line and executing in real time. Does that sound accurate? That was my understanding.
That is accurate. Yep.
Okay, cool. So we went through installing VS Code, which is an IDE. Jeff, do you remember what IDE stands for? Because I usually don't.
I looked it up earlier because I literally couldn't remember it. It is, and I think I still have it on my screen. It stands for Integrated Development Environment. And now neither Andy or I are developers, so we're going to be saying things wrong.
If you're a developer, apologies up front. We are networking people trying to learn the things that you know. And it is hard. And I keep mentioning her, but Erica the dev has put out incredible content. She says, this stuff is very hard and it's not taught well, and don't beat yourself up if you're struggling. So we're here, we're going to do this together. Hopefully we can build a little study group / community around us. And if we got buy-in and everybody wants to do this, great. If you guys hate it, let us know. And like I said, we'll just do something different with it. So let me do my screen share here. Jeff and I are also going to do our best to keep this tight, meaning that keeping the audio podcast listener in mind as we do this. Not going to try to spend a ton of time like troubleshooting nonsense and talking to myself. I apologize. I actually had some cool like background vibe music going on last time, and I forgot to bring my Sonos speaker in. So you get these cute little lights behind me. I'm trying to like do the streamer thing, Jeff. Like I think you need lights. We had that little like starting soon intro thing, so we're getting there. Can you see my screen? don't know how the screen share works.
You got your screen. It's good.
Oh, okay. Is it big enough? I don't love the screen share in Riverside.
I don't actually see it on the YouTube stream, though. I only see it on yours and my video here.
Yeah, I see it, but it looks small.
I do see it. Yep.
So it looks like whoever's talking gets the big part of the screen. I don't know where the setting. Apologies, folks. I don't know how to make the screen share bigger so that you can see that and not my face. So Jeff, you see the same thing I do on YouTube, right? Where
I do, yeah.
On the big screen, and I don't know how to change that or if I can. Whoops. Presentation, I don't think. No, it's not it. So screen. Oh, wait. Deskpad. Hold on. Maybe this is better. If not, we'll just run with it. And all right, well, here's the deal, folks. We're in a recording studio called Riverside FM, and it has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. And for whatever reason, I can't seem to get the textbook and our IDE to come up big on the screen. So I don't know how to change that, but bear with us. In the edited released version that we'll have, it'll be a full screen. We'll be able to see all of this. You can always follow along. If you have this book, you can get it on Amazon. You could get it on Starch Press. And I have a PDF here that we'll go through as well. So without further ado, sorry for all the yapping. We did variables last week. Variables, I believe, again, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me hop back up there and make sure I don't screw this up. I think a variable is assigning a value to a thing. So last week, if I can find the IDE, I think we created a variable named messages, I believe. Let me find it. I'm also fighting a virtual monitor here on this ultra wide, so hang in there with me while I try to make this. Oh, so we created a variable named message. So message equals, and then something in quotes. Message equals hello Python crash course reader. And then we printed that. And a variable is something assigned to memory that has a name. Does that sound accurate to you, Jeff? It's just a thing.
Something you can call later on. You can call repeatedly and use it and within a string, within your code later on.
And that's the magic that I can't wait to see, because when I hear people say like, oh, you create a bunch of stuff and then you call it later to do neat stuff with. I don't think I've ever gotten to like the call things to do neat stuff with, because I figure out variables and strings and dictionaries and lists. And then when it all comes together, I freak out and get confused. So that's the goal, is to just kind of stay in this material until I keep it all straight and we can do stuff and call things and be like, yay. Another thing I want to point out, I don't know if you guys can see the screen in the stream, but I commented it out up top, but something that I struggled with in Python Party 1 that made sense later, people were explaining it to me in the chat. What we did up top here is we created a variable named message and then gave it a value hello Python world, and then did a print message. And then right after that, created a new value for message called hello Python crash course world and did a print message. What I thought would happen, and that's kind of the fun part about this for me, Jeff, is it's like labbing, right? It's just trial and error. What I thought was going to happen is it was just going to print the second value that I assigned to message, which is hello Python crash course, because I thought that the second would have overwritten the first. But as somebody told me at the time, I didn't understand, and I went back later and looked. You create the variable here, it prints it. So I guess Python works top down, right? Like line by line. So it received the variable here, printed that, rewrote the variable, printed that. And when I saw the output, which I can't find down here somewhere, but the output was it printed both, and it blew my mind. I'm like, wait a minute. So anyway, now I see what it was doing, because there's a print statement in each one. Now I think, I don't want to get too far into the weeds and have this take all night, but I think if I got rid of this print message and just did something like this, message meow, and then print, it would only print the second one. Does that make sense?
It does. Can you hear me, Andy?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. One of the things I would actually encourage you to start doing, instead of deleting and adding things when you're writing programs, comment them out. So in front of your print button, you put a hash symbol in front of it. Yep. And the only reason I say that, yeah, the reason I say that is because there's going to be times when you've got parts of your code that you want to bring in, parts of your code you want to remove, and maybe you're just playing around with it, or you don't need it to run through all 70 lines. You want to run only through a certain number of them. Commenting them out to kind of help identify where problems are, it's really helpful.
Yeah. So I had them commented out, but what I wanted to do just for the sake of this is remove those, or not comment them out, whatever it would be. But what I'd like to try to do, I guess, is write it in a way that I think would do what I expected it to. So I think what it'll do here is assign hello Python world to that variable message, overwrite that, and then when it prints, it'll print hello Python crash course world because it overwrote the first one. So I'm going to try to run that just for the hell of it. If I'm wrong, oh well, I don't understand any of this. And somebody showed me last time that up here in the top right, there's a little play button guy. And if I click that, it'll run it for me. Because what I was trying to do is go up to like run Python without debugger, and I kept fighting things in the IDE. So just up here on the top right, you can hit the play button and it runs it for you. As we can see down in the terminal, Jeff, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it well because again, I have it full screen, but everybody else doesn't.
Yeah.
Also, we did have someone in the chat point something out, which Andy, if you go in front of your first print screen and do command / that essentially toggles on and off. Yeah, command then your / Yep, just press command / nope, command /.
Command /.
See, that puts a comment. If you do command / again, it removes it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
Okay.
A little shortcut.
That's a cool little. So anyway, I got hung up on this for 15 minutes in the last one, and I'm going to edit all that out because it was really hard to listen to. But as I'm learning these concepts, as you learn them with us and you lab it out and you try this stuff, you can play with it and see what happens. So what I thought was going to happened just now, which is I ran it and hello Python crash course world is what it wrote, because the variable that was set in this line got rewritten here. But again, the last time there was a print statement in between them. And so, okay. So here we are. In the textbook, we are going from variables to strings. So tonight we're going to do strings and whatever else we can get to in about an hour. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time here. So Jeff, I don't know what your time looks like, but if we can go for an hour, get as far as we can and call it a night, I think that's reasonable. Variables. Where the hell strings? Here we are. I'm also struggling to navigate this PDF. When I scroll, the next thing just pops up. So give me a second here.
You can go to view and continuous scroll is what you'd set.
View continuous scroll.
Maybe you don't have that option there. All right. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. I'll work it out, guys. Okay, so I think I actually have to go over to this stupid thing. Yeah, I kept fighting it last time. All right, so what's a string? Because most programs define and gather some sort of data and do something useful with it, which I guess, like you were saying, is calling it later. It helps to classify different types of data. The first data type we'll look at is a string. Strings are quite simple at first glance, but you can use them in many different ways. What is a string, Jeff? It's a series of characters. Anything inside quotes is considered a string in Python.
Yeah.
And you
so
can
just like literal characters. Yep.
So what we did earlier when we created a variable, that was a string after the equal sign, right?
Yep.
So, right. So message equals quote, hello Python crash course world. This is the string, right? In the quote?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're saying. Okay, fair enough. I don't understand. It says here that anything inside quotes is a string. You can also use single or double quotes. So I guess it doesn't matter, but this kind of blew my mind when I saw it, that a single quote, which I'd call an apostrophe, is also a string. So I didn't know that.
It's not that it's a string. It's you can put the string is the stuff that's inside of the quotes.
You can single or double quote around strings like this. So quote, correct. This is a string, or what is that? Not a comma. So
it's helpful to understand what the other stuff is, right? So strings are anything within quotation marks. Numbers are typically integers. But if you put a number inside of quotes, then it becomes a string.
Then it's
Does that make sense? So anything inside of quotes is a string.
It does, but the second line that says this is also a string and it's in single quotes.
It's just telling you that while coding, Python doesn't care if you do double quotes or single quotes.
Okay. Cool. So it gives you flexibility, and then they give you a couple different, I guess, examples here that for the sake of time, I don't want to get, I don't know if we need to read every single line. So we'll just kind of keep it going. If you want to stop me, Jeff, or anything, go ahead, but I'm going to try to keep it moving to not bore the hell out of everyone. Changing case in a string with methods. I don't even know what that sentence means. One of the simplest tasks you can do with strings is change the case of the words in a string. Look at the following code and try to determine what's happening. So name equals something. So we're setting a variable. And the string is Ada Lovelace. And then we're going to print name.c. I already hate this. My brain already goes, oh my God, what's happening? This makes no sense. So it says I could save this file name as name.py and then run it. I'd see this output. Do you think it's worth putting that code in, saving it, and running it, or can we just go by the textbook and take their word for it?
So I think there's a couple things worth doing on there, Andy. So I would even go, I would go in and follow that name and put in Ada Lovelace and print name.title, because what you want to see is what that is going to do, because you can also do things like upper and lower and things where you can change text to read a certain way.
All right, so we're going to comment out. So I'm just going to stay in the same document, right? I'm just going to comment all this other stuff out. Does that sound? I'm actually going to command / because Jeff told me I can. All right. Is this telling me to create a separate?
It doesn't matter.
Name.
This is telling you if you were creating a new one, but we're going to just do it in the same one.
Okay. So name space equals quote Ada Lovelace end quote. And we're going to print. So do I need a space after print? I know that this is trying to help me here. You need a space between name and equals. I don't think I need a space after print, right? I can just do print. And I guess this Python extension or whatever it's called in VS Code is helping me, right?
Yep.
It would tell me if I needed something. And all right, so name dot title, open, close, and then yeah, right? Yep. All right, I got to save it. So I think it's Command S. The little white dot goes away, yes. And then I'm going to run it. See what happens down here. Ada Lovelace.
And there's a capitalize the A and a capitalize the L.
Capitalize the first and the last. So a title, is that like a function? Let's see what it tells us. In this example, the variable name refers to the lowercase string Ada Lovelace. The method title, so it's a method, appears after the variable in the print call. A method is an action that Python can perform on a piece of data. Ooh, the dot after name in name.title tells Python to make the title method act on the variable name. So this is a method. Every method is followed by a set of parentheses. Jeff, quick pause here. When you learn this stuff, do you take notes? Because so far I got a variable, I got a string, now I got a method. Because again, what happens to me is, and I know this isn't layers of abstraction yet, but there's going to be all these terms, all these concepts, all these layers of abstraction. And 3 weeks from now, I'm not going to remember what the hell a method is or what it was doing or how to call it. Like, do you take notes when you study this stuff, or are you pretty good at retention when you're learning like new things? I'm
not good at retention. What I'm better at is I come up with a project and then do it. So I think you and I learn differently. You learn by the book. I will never pick up anything that I read or watch or listen to. I have to do it. So I will typically come up with a project that I'm looking to do, and then I will just start to code. I don't care that it's called a method. What I care is what it does. So in the case of putting that method in there, there are a bunch of different places where you want to do that, where let's say I'm looking up data later. I don't want to have to know, oops, did the user put something in capitals or did they do it all lowercase? So with Python, these methods, I didn't even know they were called that till now. Right. They're really helpful when you're dealing with data later on.
But how do you remember what each method does? So title will capitalize the first and last names, I guess, of the names.
Like a title, like a person's title, yeah.
But now I'm looking down lower. You can like name.upper, name.lower. So now I can see what it's doing down below here is it's actually going to, so I guess there's different methods and they're going to do different things.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess I'm just amazed that when you do this and you start building stuff, a month from now, you remember like, oh no, that was title.upper, open, close paren, enter. Like I just can't recall those details, and maybe the IDE helps you, or do you just like ChatGPT it or Google it when you can't remember stuff? Because I seem to be, the way I learn is like I go through this, I'm labbing in the IDE, and then I really like to put it in a notepad or something so that I can reference it and start to build out. But then I had somebody, when I was going through my CCNA, I had this young kid next to me. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "I'm taking notes." He's like, "You're rewriting the textbook?" So I guess another way to learn is just I could reference this book later, right? Like I don't have to write it all down. But I thought there was more science that, when the more ways you process things in your brain, the more times you put it in there and it's easy to remember. So I think taking notes helps me remember stuff. I don't know if it's true. And apparently that doesn't help you, right?
Not me personally, no. But everybody learns a little differently,
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So this is cool. I didn't even know that methods existed. You knew what they did, but you didn't know they were called methods. So we're learning cool stuff here. So the method title capitalizes first and last letters of the names. Then information is provided. Title function doesn't need any additional information, so its parentheses are empty. Title method changes each word to title case, where each word begins with a capital letter. This is useful because, so like I immediately want to know if we write it out in caps and do name.title, like if we do a title method, will it lowercase it?
Yep.
Right?
That's the beauty of it.
It should, right?
Correct. And this is something you would use in, for example, a form. So let's say that I was having a user fill out a form and I wanted to have them put in their name, and then I'm going to put that into a form later on. I don't want to have to care. Did the user put an uppercase, J and Jeff, or did they, put an uppercase JE and then the F and F were lowercase? So I would use something like title to make sure that the output was consistent regardless of how the input went in.
Yeah. So if we have to create a form and we're using these kind of pieces of logic, it's a way to, which again, I think is the magic of these type of tools. I would probably create a form and then get a bunch of janky data and then manually go in and try to change it or put it in Excel and see if I could do it that way, where you could actually just have it come in clean using this, which is really, really cool. Several other methods are used, dealing with case, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, this isn't super interesting. It's just letting us know that we can change the case of letters with this method. So is the method name dot method title. So the name was just the variable. Okay, so title, name. So upper and lower, I guess, are other methods. And there we go. This will display name upper. Ada Lovelace. So it capitalizes everything. Name lower. Lowercase is everything. So that makes a lot of sense. Lower method is particularly useful for storing data. You typically won't want to trust the capitalization users provide. Okay. And I guess in part, again, I'm not a computer science guy. Like, I know that data, what's the right term? Like structured data, like having your data in a way that you want it. To your point, if you want everyone's proper names in caps, this is a way to do that. And I don't think this is specifically talking about structured data, but I could see in the very early things that we're learning that this is a way that when we receive data in, we can do things with it, organize it, and get it in a way that we want it, which is kind of structured data in a very oversimplistic way. You're structuring the data in a way you want it. All right, so we're changing case, not too exciting. Let me get to the bottom of this guy here. And please stop me if this gets terribly boring, or if you want to do some vibe coding and show me a different way to do what we're doing or whatever. I know that reading a textbook isn't particularly, like I said, this is an experiment. I don't know how great these episodes are going to be. This is something I want to learn, and I know most of us need to learn it. Lower method is particularly used for storing data. We already did it. Using variables and strings. All right. Some situations you want to use a variable's value inside a string. Use a variable's value inside of a string. Did you see me just get confused? It's not hard. So we learn what a variable is. We're naming something and giving it a value, right? That's a variable. A string is just a string of information with quotes, single or double. And now they're saying you might want to use a variable's value inside a string, which seems crazy to me. Why would you do that? For example, you might want to use two variables to represent a first name and last name respectively. So let's see what they're talking about. Combine those two values to display someone's name. So first name Ada, last name Lovelace. Full name F, first name. You know what's sad? this hurts my brain. Like just looking at this, I get what they're doing. So we're creating a variable first name, value Ada, variable last name, value Lovelace.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another variable, right? Full name equals. So this F is kind of hurting my brain here. Like I don't
F just simply means what F means in that case is that we're going to format that text in a standard formatting, which would be first name space last name, because otherwise you could put that into Python as full name equals, and then in the curly brackets first name, then you do space, then a plus, then curly brackets last name. Well, actually, you have to do plus, then open parentheses, space, close parentheses. You see what I mean? You'd have to add in like the spaces. So by doing the F, you actually have saved, I don't know, half a dozen characters by telling it, this is going to be standard format, meaning text, space, text.
All right, and that's what it's telling us down here in the next paragraph. So to insert a variable's value into a string, place the letter F immediately before the opening quotation mark. Put braces around the name. Python will replace each variable with its value when the string is displayed. These strings are called F strings. The F is for format because Python formats the string by replacing the name of any variable and braces with its value. I'm already ready to quit.
Stop reading. Just go do.
Yeah, sure. You can do a lot of things with F strings. For example, you can use F strings to compose complete messages using the information associated with the variable as shown here. Well, Jeff, this whole thing is reading the book. You're telling me not to read the book? Like
I'm telling you not to read the whole book.
Else? Right. Well, so everything we learn in technology, we lab. And I've been advocating for home labs for 17 years, and I've labbed everything I've learned. And I'm under the impression that following the book's instructions and doing things in VS Code along with it is doing. Do you have a different view of that? Like, is this not because you're a wild man? Like, you'll just go do stuff and remember it. And like for me, I'm like, I have to do this slowly. And like I've been trying to fly through automation for years, and I can't automate anything because I can't get these base concepts in my brain. But maybe I spend too much time with it and get hung up around the, like it's hard for me to know what of this is important and what isn't. And if all 500 pages are important and it's all confusing to me, it's going to take a really long time, right? Like that's kind of the problem I run into with this stuff. But you seem to move much more faster through this type of material. Like it's always seemed to come really natural to you, which is a compliment. It's amazing.
But that's only because I'm not afraid to break it. So, for example, in this one, I see first name, last name, full name. I'm like, oh, great. I'm totally ignoring that it's Ada and Lovelace. I'm putting my name. I'm putting my last name. It's like full name is first name, last name. Right? All right. So perfect. Oh, great. Now I could probably write an email because I now have first name and last name. So I'll start playing around with it to make sure I understand the concept. And that's the way that I learn, is by literally putting it in there and saying, okay, I think I understand how this variable works. I've got first name, got last name, and then I start asking questions like, okay, but what if I had an input where someone gave their first name and their last name? How would I split those things? And that takes me down a whole other rabbit hole where I start learning about Python split things. We're not going to get into that today, but my point is,
you told me you didn't know Python, and you're like already showing off.
That's because I opened the book earlier, and that's exactly what I did. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of the student here. And so I went through this lesson, and then I got sidetracked after the first page and just started playing.
So even that is fascinating to me. So you're like, oh, I see this thing, and I'm like, oh, I can write an email. How the hell would you run this Python code in an email? Like, I don't even understand what you're saying. Like, are you in Outlook running Python? I know. I'm always overthinking.
Yeah, I'd say don't overthink. I'm not going to write the email. What I'm saying is I know that I could put variables into an email. So let's say I was doing a mass email to 100 people, but I want it to sound personalized. I know that I'm going to have variables. I already do that with Outlook and Microsoft Excel. You can do this, this funky thing where you can write a bunch of emails and have it put stuff together. Or I think it's actually Word that I did that. It's been a while since I did it. But anyway,
you can when you get that email and you can see like the variables in the email. Dear, variable, curly bracket, whatever. I'm like, oh,
Correct.
come on, man.
This is the same concept.
Check your stuff. All right, so I'm writing it out just because you're right. I need to lab, and again, if this is boring, folks, and this sucks, let us know, and we'll pivot, and I'll just do this on my own. But I loved what Lexi Cooper was doing when she was studying Ethernet and her networking stuff, and I just found it very helpful for me. It also keeps me accountable because every week I have to get on here and do this where I might not do it otherwise. So I wrote it out, Jeff. I don't know if you can see my ID, but first name is Andy. Last name is Laptef. Another variable, full name. We're using the F string. And what are these called? Curly braces? Is that what that thing is there?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
That's what I hear people call them.
Is that what? Okay. Full name. And then we use the F string. And then we tell it curly bracket first name, curly bracket last name, and then print. And what the hell is this going to do? Format, string, Python, replacing. See what happens. Printed my name because it formatted. It took these two variables and pulled them together. Okay, so I can kind of see if you have a whole lot of variables and you're trying to put things together.
So let me ask a critical thinking question.
Oh, God.
What if you wanted your name to be capitalized, first and last name? Mm-hmm. What could we probably or possibly do from what we learned before? Because currently it's going to say Andy Laptop, all lowercase.
Right. I forget what the hell it was, and I have to go back and look at it.
It was dot title. I have no idea if this will work, but let's try print full name dot title and see what it does.
Okay.
Oh, it actually shows to the next page.
Print full name. Where do I put the dot title?
Right after the full underscore name.
So outside of the brackets?
No, inside the brackets. No, inside the brackets. Or the inside the parentheses in this case.
So
title.
Print full name dot title and paren.
Yep. And now run it. That didn't do it. we didn't break anything, did we?
No, but I like your style here. Print name dot title.
Let's
open
see, where's
closed. So where the hell's mine?
Well, I think it has to be in curly brackets is why. The full name dot title has to be in curly brackets. According to this.
Full name dot title. Oh, there's like an open close paren after title.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's the open close parentheses. Never mind. It doesn't have to be the curly brackets.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but I guess syntax
other stuff you can pass in
like,
later. Yeah.
Pass in, call. So like, what does that stuff mean? Call. Like, never mind. I get hung up on. I know pass in is a thing, and I know calling is a thing, but all right. So it did it.
There we go. Yeah, we were just missing the open and close.
Yeah.
But see, now we tied the thing we learned before with the thing we just learned, which is we could tie two variables together to make a new variable, and we can use the method, the dot title there, to make it.
That's enough for me, man. I'm ready for ice cream.
All right, we're done. Peace out.
How many people? Has everybody left? Can I go eat ice cream yet? How many people we got on here? Oh, good. There's only 9, and I think 2 of them are us. So we don't have 100 people.
This beer, and then it's beers with engineers. And
do you have beer? Do you have a beer there?
I have a cup of something. We'll see what's in it. Nobody's business.
I'm drinking water. All right.
Yes, me too. Oh, see, if I look at the chat, people were telling us what to do already, how to fix it.
You were supposed to watch the chat, but you're babysitting me. All right. So
I know
this is helpful for me. And honestly, I'm just looking back. I'm trying to draw a parallel between me learning the CLI and me learning this, because I used to work with a guy, Chris, at another company, and he would say, dude, if you can learn a vendor CLI, you can write Python code. Like, it's not, it's just as complicated, quote unquote. So I'm trying to remember how confused I was sitting in Netacad trying to learn these arcane commands. and how weird it was. But then over time, the more you do it. So I guess my point is I'm just going to keep doing this and keep practicing. And then I think it just becomes muscle memory and this stuff will come more naturally. But right now I'm very uncomfortable, very out of my element. And I'm hating this because it just feels very foreign. But I guess the more you do things, it'll start to become second nature. So, okay. F strings. Cool. We're formatting stuff. We're pulling in multiple variables and printing them out together, which is kind of cool. You did a really cool thing with the dot title. So look at that. Was that your idea, or you stealing it from the book? Was that just
that was my idea, and then I saw the book.
You should have wrote the book. You and what's his face? You and Eric.
I couldn't even get the opening close parentheses right.
You could do a lot of things with F strings. You can use F strings to compose complete messages. Ada Lovelace, blah blah blah. So that's what we just did, and then it printed out. Yeah, the caps, great. You can use F strings to compose a message and then assign the entire message to a variable. See, I'm going to just say it out loud, Jeff, for my own and for anybody else listening. Like, learning Python properly, and that's what I would call this, to me is way less interesting and way harder, it seems, than just kind of doing the stuff you do. Like, when I found some code and I figured out, I went down and plugged in a router in my lab and I got access to it and I installed NetMiko and I just stole some Python code and it used the NetMiko library. It logged in with the credentials I gave it and it ran commands. Like, to me, that was really exciting, way more exciting than like running an F whatever, title. Like, it's just, this stuff is so dry to me. And I guess that's the difference, between developers and maybe network people. Like, this might really, really excite someone who's a dev and is like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is crazy. Like I was when I learned what happens when a computer boots up or when a packet gets encapsulated. Like, but this just doesn't do it for me, which I think is why I struggle. I'm like, oh my God, the syntax and the awfulness, and look at it. And like, this isn't English. And like, how am I going to ever remember this? But to get to a point where you can do cool stuff with this, I think is where I'm trying to get to. And I think I can get there. I don't know how long that'll take, but I can't wait to get to a point where I can like do things to network gear with this. And it doesn't have to be network gear, but like, do you automate stuff at home? Yeah. I know you have. Yeah. Are you doing it in Python? So
anymore, I'm not even bothering to learn code. You've
been coding for decades, right? Like, let's not.
Yeah, but I'm not a coder, right? So
yeah,
what I'm doing now is
look at code and understand it, right?
Yeah, but So I'll give you an example. So yesterday, I spent about an hour in VS Code using the Codex, which is ChatGPT's, OpenAI's AI model. I did it and I totally vibe coded the whole thing. It was all written in JavaScript because I was trying to build a web application. So a single file web application that I didn't have to, that I could make portable and give to other people. And about an hour, I wrote an entire program that if I had been doing it 10 years ago, when I was first starting to learn the basics of coding and kind of copying and pasting other people's code, it would have been potentially weeks worth of work. And I did it in less than an hour because I stopped caring what the code looked like and I let the AI do it. Now, here's the thing.
To be fair, you weren't coding, right?
Right. I wasn't coding. I was directing.
You were prompt engineering and saying, give me this.
I was prompt engineering.
And then you would just copy the paste. Like, so what happens when you use that code and it doesn't work? You just iterate with...
Pop it back in. I was grabbing screenshots. I was pointing at things, saying this isn't working. This thing here. And I was showing. I was able to have a whole conversation with it about what wasn't working. In the same way that if I was a manager and I was managing somebody that was a coder, and they sent something to me that they had put together, I might run it and be like, listen, I know that you sent this to me, and you asked me to enter my name in the first one, but I didn't enter my name, and it broke the rest of your code. Go back and fix it. That's the kind of thing I'd say if I was managing an individual who wasn't a great coder. And to be fair, AI isn't an amazing coder. It's getting better and better. But my brother, who is a coder, he's a programmer. He looks at code that AI puts together and he's like, it's hideous. It's ugly. It's inefficient. Right. I'm like, yeah, but it's fast. It's fast. And I'm only coding for me. I'm not coding for a job to get paid. I'm coding to automate some process. And so from that perspective, I don't necessarily care about the language, but doing things like this means that in studying stuff we're learning here, it is really helpful because I know what code is capable of doing. So I can have a better conversation with that AI in the same way. that the more senior I got as a network engineer, the more I could talk to senior architects. And then the more I could talk to a bunch of other engineers who were in other fields, because I now kind of understood the language. So understand the language. What you're doing now, I think, is really important because you're learning the language. I don't think it's as important, though, as I think understanding why you're coding and how you can do it is good. I think it's less important to know all the syntax. That's why you're like, well, yeah, how do I know what this is called?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care what it's called. I just remember that there was a function that I could capitalize something, and now I ask ChatGPT, it gives it to me. I now know to use that variable if I'm programming. It's
I
the
guess
lazy way out, but
no, I mean, honestly, times have changed, right? Because I'm just comparing it to like when I was studying networking. You had to know the difference between, a prefix list or an ACL or there was all these different versions of the same thing that you had to know what they were called and how they worked and how you lab them and what the syntax and, you're going to get a sim in the exam. But today, you're right, you learn all this stuff, but then we have all this amazing tooling that kind of abstracts all that awfulness away for you, and you can just get the same result. Mm-hmm. Why would you spend 3 weeks writing that web app for work if you could do it in an hour? And I guess that's where I'm at.
That's why.
Well, yeah, right. But I've had people say the same thing to me. Why are you learning Python? Just do it in ChatGPT and be done with it. And maybe that's what I should do. I don't know, but I'd really like to learn. And maybe it's just because I'm old school. I just want to learn the basics of how this stuff works and how the logic works. And I am not going to be a coder. I am not going to be a dev. I don't think I'm going to be, helping write code for features that work. That's not my strength. But I sure as hell would like to, because automation it gets more and more into my life over the years. And I don't like when somebody throws a YAML or a JSON at me, or I see some Python code. I don't want to get the yips and be like, oh, my mom's calling me, I got to go. You know what I mean? I want to be able to stay in the room and have the conversation and contribute, as opposed to.
Yeah. And I'm not advocating for having AI do all your coding. What I am advocating
many
for,
people are, though, because it's gotten that good, right?
And in reality, I think for the long run, that's kind of a direction that things will go once it's just kind of perfect every time. But I think of it like this. I have a very competent coder in my pocket or on my screen that is at my beck and call whenever I want to ask it questions. So I could pop this code in here that we're working on, and then I could be like, can you explain this whole title thing to me? And then it explains it. I'm like, can you explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old? And then it breaks it down like I'm a 2-year-old. Like that kind of thing you can get out of AI. But I think the problem is if we're just reading the book. It's kind of like when you taught your kids to ride their bikes, I'm sure, and the only way they could learn to ride their bikes was to go out there and ride their bikes, and they started with training wheels, right? And then you took off the training wheels, and then it was dad holding the back of the bike, and then eventually they realized, oh my word, I actually already know how to do this. That's why I'm a big advocate of just go and write a bunch of code. It's like if you need to go and write this same message equals F hello thing, in 6 different ways and make it write full paragraphs, go do that until you really understand what it's doing. Because I don't think there's any, like you talked about, this book's gonna bore you to tears. I think you should go to the book. I think this is a really good class. I just
Eric, no shade at Eric that this book will bore you to tears. I'm just catching up on the chat as you're talking, and it's really funny. They're like, oh my God, we're still in print? Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Oh my God, why aren't you using OBS? Oh my God, I can't see the stuff. Max is like, no, don't use AI. Yeah. It's just, there's a whole show within the show happening over here. Apparently I don't even know how to stream, guys. I mean, I'm an old guy. I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. And if I told you how much time I've spent just trying to get this crappy stream working, right, Jeff? Jeff, we need a coming soon video thing. Can you help?
I would argue that we still don't have it working. We're close. Right now, everyone's seeing our faces and not this in the actual stream. But that is kind of the whole premise of the show. Is it's the art of network engineering, and it really tech is an art in general. You got to figure it out. And just like an artist has to learn to paint, nobody comes out of the womb. A master artist. No one becomes a good coder or a good engineer. without getting their hands a little dirty and doing it. And so I think this is really good. We're learning some basic stuff here.
Is it? I don't know. In full transparency, I'm just trying to make learning Python more entertaining than, to your point, like this book's going to bore you to death, right? Yeah. But here I am with a screen people can't see, talking about things they may or may not be able to see. And this stuff is pretty boring. So like, I don't know, maybe we just leave it to the, to the, what's the guy's name? Kirk Byers. And, there's people out there teaching Python, but for me, every single one of them I try to sit through, I'm just like, oh, and I thought maybe we could make this somewhat entertaining, but it might not be happening.
I'm entertained. I jumped on because I thought the first one was entertaining.
All right. Well,
the problem is we've only done 3 pages.
Well, so that's part of the problem with me learning this stuff is I don't like skipping through things. I'm not a huge fan of what you do, which is just go do stuff. I could go vibe code. And in full transparency, I started making an app on Replit for something, just vibe coding. And I got pretty far, and that's kind of scary because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then we were doing some transcript stuff on the podcast not too long ago. And I asked ChatGPT, like, can you help me search 185 episodes to see if we're missing any transcripts? And it spit out the code. I haven't done it yet. And that would probably be more entertaining in this context. Like, hey, let's run this and see if it works. And, maybe vibe coding is a better format for the show than watching me read a book. So I guess, we'll get there. I don't know how long this is going to. All right, let's, I guess we'll just move on here. In the text, maybe. I don't know. Where are we at here, Jeff? The longer I do this, the more it seems like a terrible idea. This code displays the message hello to Lovelace as well, but assigning the message variable, blah, 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 blah. All right. Adding white space to strings with tabs or new lines. And programming, white space refers to any non-printing characters, such as space, tabs, and end-of-line symbols. You can use white space to organize your output so it's easier for others to read. To add a tab to your text. Oh my God. Isn't there like a religious debate of like tabs and spaces and coding? I feel like
that's not what this is saying though. This is more about output of text than input.
Well, they're talking about white space, right? Isn't that tabs and spaces or no?
In this instance, it's not. What they're showing is they're showing. See how the words Python, C, and JavaScript are tabbed in under the word under languages. That's the below, output to the user. So \n, for example, means new line. \t means tab. So what they're showing is you can do like this whole thing. Print languages : \n \t. You're really saying languages : new line, tab over Python. New line, tab over, C. Does that make sense? It's just saying you don't have to do it in like a string of text. You can do it in one giant thing.
Huh. So this down here is the same as this. It's the same thing.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Does anybody?
Yeah, that's the output you would get from that print.
Does anybody?
There are times when you are, especially if you're stringing together variables, that you would do that.
Okay. Also combine tabs and new lines in a single string and T tells Python to move to a new line. Yeah, I feel like this is boring, Jeff. I'm like already bored, which isn't great as a host of a show, telling people that I'm bored. Stuff just doesn't hold my interest. Stripping white space, extra white space can be confusing in your programs. I need to talk to Erica, the dev. How do I learn this stuff, Erica? It's painful. Extra white space, confusing programs. Look pretty much the same, but they're programmed. They're different strings.
Do you understand what this is getting at here?
Nah, I hate it.
So what it's part of the challenge in grabbing, again, think about filling out a form for a user. Let's say that the user starts, it asks for first name, and they put in, and I start putting in Jeff space, oh wait, it only wanted first name, so I backspace all the way to the word Clark, but I've still got Jeff space, right? That extra space to a computer means that if it's looking for just the word Jeff, it's not going to recognize that Jeff space, or it's going to treat Jeff space as a different value than the word Jeff.
Spaces are treated as like a space is a thing.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
That's true of any computer language. That's true in Excel, right? If I'm trying to filter by something and I've got empty spaces at the end of it, it can cause problems in data in Excel. So what this is showing you is that there's ways to strip out the superfluous, the unused spaces or unnecessary spaces. And again, a lot of times that's from a user's input, because what you're really a large part of what you're doing when you're coding or programming or scripting is you might be taking input from a user and then trying to clean it up so that any mistakes they made when they typed it in there don't impact the way that the code gets put in.
I'm so glad you're here. The book should just say that. That makes so much more sense than what I'm reading. And I guess he starts to get to it here. Extra white space can be confusing to programmers. Python and Python space, to your point, look the same, but to a program, they're two different strings. It detects the extra space and considers it significant unless you tell it otherwise. So is that just part of like everyday? I wonder if that's like a housekeeping item. Like when you, do you just remove white space from data when you get it before you do things to it? It would seem that way. Like if white space is like, there's no value in white space in coding, right? Like, do you use spaces for things, or is it all just a waste of space and confusing and screws everything up? Like, do you always strip white space? I guess it depends.
It depends. Again, the goal of stripping the white space is right now you're inputting the strings. But let's say that you were writing a program where you asked me, the user, to input a string. So again, we'll go back to, you asked me for my first name and I put Jeff space, and then you asked me for my last name and I put Clark. Well, you're accounting for putting in the space when you put Jeff Clark in a sentence. But if I put a space too, then you would have Jeff space Clark. And that wouldn't look, the text output to the user wouldn't be great. So what you're doing is you're making sure that there's no additional spaces that I may have put in there as a user, and you're just cleaning up that text so that when you use it later on in your script, it's clean. So from a let's say we're building VLANs in a switch or something like that. If I have a naming convention for my VLANs and or for my interface descriptions, I might not want to have someone put spaces in a description. I might want to use underscores, so I might strip out spaces and replace them with underscores. That's not necessarily exactly what this R strip is doing, but it can do that. So I can, if you're wanting to build consistency, that's where you're going to want to deal with that data, and you're going to want to make sure you clean it up. So again, if I'm asking a user, hey, what's the description for this interface? They give me the interface description. Maybe I don't want it to be capitalized, or maybe I want every word that's in that capitalized with an underscore instead of a space. You know what I mean? So that's where Python can come in and clean that stuff up from my user's input. So even if I have a sloppy engineer who puts that in, a well-written program can clean up after that engineer and then give a really good output.
Right. And then it's calling out here, I guess, the R strip method. So that'll look on the left and the right of strings and remove any white space. Favorite language, extra space. Have you ever had to use this? Like, have you ever had data and been like, oh no, there's white space, I got to remove it? Yeah.
Yeah, when I used to, so when I worked at SunGard, we used to script out essentially changes that could be done over and over and over. And this is exactly the kind of stuff I would put in the scripts that I would write, because we would have more junior engineers inputting the data, and all we were really doing was generating a change plan. We weren't having the script log in and do the changes, but we were generating a change plan. But they were going to copy that change plan and they were going to paste that into the CLI. And I needed to make sure that what they copied and pasted was going to go in a format that wasn't going to shoot out an error. So if people had extra spaces, or if someone used the wrong character in dropping in a config, your config breaks and someone's just dropped 1,000 lines of code, but line 17 there was an error and no one was paying attention. So when you're writing scripts for to automate processes like that, you really want to make sure that you're taking into account the possibility for someone to fat finger something, or to if you're, again, going back to that naming convention, Yeah, there's stuff that'll be, I'm sure, later in the book here where I'm setting character limits. And I'm saying, you can input text, but it can't be more than 5 characters. Yes. So things like that, again, for data governance and for data cleaning it up, those become really important. So these things absolutely you'll use when you're doing real programming and real scripting.
Yeah, Max has some good comments in the chat. He does input sanitation validation for any input. White space normalization is a daily driver all the time. It's a constant. Imagine you put an IP or host name into the system. That extra space will break your script. So that's actually an interesting. This is why if you use Notepad++ and you just do one line at a time, copy and paste, you'll see the error and you can fix it in real time, Jeff.
You could.
That's what I did. And I wasn't slow. I was a little slow. No, this is actually, so yeah, you can go fast with automation, but then if you have
it's not about speed. It's about consistency.
Well,
and consistency is more important than speed. And with scripting, you can get both. You can consistently do things faster. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I don't know, were you working at Comcast before we started using the ticket tool? So for those of you listening to this, we used to have to create tickets and they were all by hand, and it was a 10-minute process to create a ticket. You had to write these long paragraphs about, we had this cell tower go down and here's why it went down. And, this was a T-Mobile tower and whatever. I came in and was able to automate a lot of that process. And what used to happen is when people would write these emails, let's say that a T-Mobile tower goes down, some people would put T-Mobile all as one word. Some people would put T-Mobile. Some people would put capital T, capital M in there. And you just had a lot of inconsistency. When I scripted it, it always came out the same because essentially we knew this is the T-Mobile tower. We're going to now mark it capital T dash capital M. So it's about consistency, not just speed. And that's really, I think, why scripting is important in networking, and scripting is important in a lot of different jobs where they're trying to automate things. It's not just about speed; it's also about consistency and about it being accurate, because it can then spit back and say, "Hey, we're not going to let you copy. We're not going to let you put this in because it's bad code or it's bad output."
Aren't there I don't know what it's called, but aren't there like pauses that you can put in your code so that, like, to your point, if there's white space and it breaks something and somebody threw 1,000 lines of code at the device, I thought I remember at one point there's like little either pauses or checks where you can do like, I don't think it's called error checking, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's error checking, but there's also sometimes, I would often put in like an enter to continue type of scenario. Yeah. Where I would give somebody the output and be like, hey, look this over. Does this look right to you? Enter to continue, or press whatever key to go and retry to enter your information. So
the engineer doesn't just press enter and he's out of the loop.
Right.
It kind of does codes and blocks, pauses, checks, like, did this thing happen? Did that neighbor come up? It looks right. Continue, like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. You're filling out a form on a web page. If it's multiple pages, it'll often ask you to verify the information before you move on to the next one. You build that stuff into your code. That's just code.
So Max talking about error handling. Something goes bad, the script's able to work to some degree. All right, so we're coming up on numbers here. So I think we probably end this when we get to the end of this. I'm really struggling with determining if this is interesting to anybody. So I don't know. I'm not feeling super confident about this. Again, this is an experiment, Jeff, and I don't know if anybody wants to listen to, like, I'm trying to teach Python, but I don't understand Python. And now I'm second guessing that philosophy. I'm not trying to teach it as much as have people watch me learn it. But if you weren't here, this would be much more painful. So thank you for teaching me. Max says it's a real struggle, the part no one shows you. All right, so stripping white space, I understand why that's important. White spaces are bad. It can break your scripts. There's what is it called? Not a function. What do they call it? Was it a function? It's the strip method. So there's an rstrip method. And where do you put that? So variable favorite language equals Python. Favorite language, Python space. Favorite language dot rstrip open close paren. Yeah, So the R strip will just take it out of there, which is, so when would you use that? Like, let's say we're creating a script to, I don't know, do something in a router.
Yeah.
Like,
So
how do you know
again,
when to use these things, right? Like, is that just part of your, we wrote a script, we went through it, now let's strip all white space? Like, do you always use
sometimes
R strip? Yeah, it depends, I guess, huh?
Sometimes it depends. It depends on if that extra space is going to be problematic, right? If I'm just looking to get the text that's in there, I might strip out those spaces at the beginning with the R strip, or beginning or end with R strip, right? Sometimes I'm doing a dot split, which is another one I talked about before, which is someone puts in, they put Jeff Clark, and I want to now split Jeff Clark, which is their full name, into first name, last name. I can split by the space. So I might want to strip out extra spaces or whatever. There's different times you're going to want to use that R strip. Again, it's just about keeping data clean. It doesn't do anything. There's nothing. Don't overthink it. It's really just, I want to keep this clean.
You're telling me not to overthink it, dear God. Are there ever, this is me not overthinking it, but I am. Are there ever situations where you would want white space? Like where you wouldn't want to strip it?
I mean,
or do you always strip white space? Like there's not any constant across the board, like white space is bad, it's going to break stuff. There isn't a function where white space does the thing that you need, and if you do an R strip, it's going to break it. Probably not.
Well,
right?
I mean, if I was using it in a split, for example, and I was trying to use the space as a way to identify, but there are other better ways to do that. So just for all intents and purposes now, we want to get rid of the nonsense space if we're just doing a single word input, especially on single word inputs. That's where you want to strip that out.
All right. Remove white space, blah, 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 R strip, great. Then removing prefixes when working with strings. Another common task is to remove a prefix. Consider URL with the common prefix HTTPS : // You want to remove this prefix so we can focus on just the part of the URL that users need to enter. So no starch underscore URL variable HTTPS, and then we do a no starch underscore URL dot remove prefix. Paren HTTPS. So we're telling it to remove that, and then I guess it'll remove that anywhere it sees it, or maybe just in that line. Who the hell knows? Variable followed by dot, blah, blah, blah. Methods removing white space. What was the first language you learned, Jeff? Do you remember?
The first language I learned was not Turbo. It was BASIC, GW BASIC.
Yeah, I think I took BASIC in high school, but I don't remember it at all.
I learned GW BASIC, then Pascal, then C++.
Did BASIC make sense to you right away? Were you like, oh, I like this stuff. This is cool.
I think BASIC made sense to me in the same way that algebra made sense to me. Right? Algebra was just one of those things that just it completely, my brain, it works with my brain. Right? But that's just programming in general for me. I don't. Different languages are sure, like Python is a really nice, easy language to use, but personally, my favorite language to write in is Bash because it's super forgiving and it just works in every Linux thing out there. It's ugly but it's quick. It's quick and dirty. So I'll have to write Python scripts that I launch using a Bash script, and I'll string together Python strips with a Bash script. So, but there's a bunch of different languages. Once you learn one, the other ones, it's the concepts of these languages that you're learning right now. It's the variables, it's the strings, it's the integers. Them, right? It's right. Yeah. Fairly common. Python is super, super robust and has a bunch of extra things that other languages don't do as well. And that's why Python is just, it's kind of the language that everyone learns.
And I keep saying this out loud for anyone like me. As soon as you said BASIC was easy, algebra was easy, it's just how your brain works. Mm-hmm. I had a hell of a time in both of those, and math was always a struggle for me. And I immediately connect those dots in my head and go, well, see, I'm not good at math, I can't program, blah, 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 run away, which is what's happened so many times over the years. It's not true, it's an old story. And I know if I spend enough time in this stuff, I mean, it makes more sense today than it did 5 years ago, but I continue to still fight that. Like, it gets hard, I'm uncomfortable, Jeff's better at it, maybe it's not for me, let me run away. So again, I'm exposing the silly little loop that my mind runs in when this stuff feels hard. Because when you see it's easy for somebody else, you're like, well, damn, why can't I get this? But
well, and I'm not saying that it's like it's not a brag or even a humble brag.
No,
it's just saying that my brain's able to, it definitely picks up on this stuff. But again, I also can't sit and read a book. You'll never see me sitting reading a book like this. I would never. You have gotten farther in this book than I would.
I'm sorry. I invited you in to watch me read a book, and you're like, I hate books. I don't want to read a book. This is terrible.
No, I actually love reading books. I never read tech books. Here's what I see on this page. I see message equals. I see. I only see the stuff that's code blocks. That's all I do. I throw those in, and I figure out what they do. But I'm also someone that if you ask me how deep the water is, I'm like, I don't know. Let me dive in.
I'm glad you're here, Jeff. All right, I think we're almost at the end of this particular section. So avoiding syntax errors with strings. One kind of error that you might see with some regularity is a syntax error. It occurs when Python doesn't recognize a section of your program as valid Python code. For example, if you use an apostrophe within single quotes, you'll produce an error. This happens because Python interprets everything between the first single quote and the apostrophe as a string, right? It then tries to interpret the rest of the text as Python code, which causes errors. Here's how to use single and double quotes correctly. Save this program, blah, blah, blah. So variable message equals one of Python's strengths is its diverse community. Print. The apostrophe appears. I don't even notice the apostrophe. The apostrophe appears inside double quotes, so Python interpreter has no trouble reading the string. However, if you use single quotes, right, now it's all screwed up. Python can identify. Yeah, which makes sense to me, actually. I get that. That's pretty intuitive. And that's kind of what I like about the IDEs. It'll tell you that, right? It'll actually highlight it and tell you where it broke. And I also saw something in the last thing I did. What's it called? The traceback, I guess, where it'll give you the error. Like, hey, line 8, character 14. This is what I don't like. And then it's really nice. Oh, okay, great. I see where it's broken. And then the IDE tells
It's nice until it doesn't work quite right. And then it's really annoying.
Well, they use ChatGPT to fix it,
line 24. It's really line 22. Really?
I see the following output. So this makes sense to me. It figures out the beginning and end of a string with the quotes. And if you do single quotes and then put a third single quote in there, of course, it's going to be like, what the hell's happening? I don't understand. So I get that. Thinks problem might be a string. Errors can validate for a variety of sources. You might see syntax errors often as you learn to write proper code. Yes, syntax errors are also the least specific kind of error, so they can be difficult and frustrating to identify if you get stuck. See suggestions in an appendix. All right, so then they just give you different things you can try, and that's probably the end of this section. I think it's going to get into integers next, which I don't have the stomach for right now. Yeah, it's going to get into numbers. I don't know, Jeff. That's about an hour. I don't know if we'll release this. I'll have to go back and take a look. I kind of feel like I kind of lost the love at some point in there. It got complicated and hard for me. And I think you're right. Reading a textbook and this stuff's kind of boring and it's dry and like, okay, I can write some stuff in the IDE, but it's still not all that exciting, right? Like I'm not really making anything, building anything. I think if I was doing things in a router or a switch, it'd probably be more engaging for me. If I was doing things in code with the router, which I guess there's programs like that out there. I don't know if Kirk Byers, like Python for Network Engineers, is one of those, but I'd almost rather have this in the context of networking the whole time. But again, I don't know if you have to learn the basics of all the structure stuff so that you can then understand what the hell you're doing later in the device, right? Like, I don't know.
Let's unpack that for a second here.
Yeah.
What we learned today is actually stuff that you could use to configure a switch right now. It may not log in and do the scripting for you, but let's say that you wanted to write a script where it was, I want to build the base configuration for this device. The first thing I need to know is a host name. Then I need to know the IP address. Then I need to know the subnet mask. Then I need to know the default gateway. Then I need to know, whatever. Right. So that's 4 things there. Now, what we've done so far is we've just done variables. We haven't done any inputs, but I think that's pretty soon where you're going to start asking the user for an input. But it's the exact same thing, because all that does is it's asking for someone to fill in that variable. So what that means is you could have that, and then you could have it spit out a basic configuration for you. Config T. I'm sorry, my brain doesn't go to Cisco anymore. I'm so used to working on our stuff that I can only write in my own code.
Give me your syntax, here, man. It's fine. I want to learn your syntax. Go ahead.
My point is, like, you could absolutely write out all the bits of that code, and then say, okay, insert variable here. In my case, it would be config system interface, edit, and then what's the port that I said is going to be my WAN interface? Yeah, WAN 1. Okay, perfect. I use the variable WAN 1. Then set IP. What's the IP I gave? Great.
So hold on, because my brain just lost you. I think I know where you're going. So WAN 1 equals, and then would it be an IP address? Like, what's that variable that you're calling?
I'm saying I would prompt the user for a variable, and then what I would normally do is I'd spit out a bunch of code that they could literally copy and paste. So if you want, on the next one, I could actually, I don't mind guiding, and we could go log into a box. I would just need to know which thing we're logging into. And I could show you how we could write a base configuration with really what we've learned now. The problem is that's going to take us way away from following the book. And I think there's some benefit to you learning this.
Yeah, and I'm totally open to it, and I think we should. So listen, I'm going to learn this stuff either way. I don't know if I'm going to get through all 500 pages, but I've made it my mission in life that I'm going to eventually look at a Python script and at least be able to describe what it's doing. And I know I can, and I'm going to come over, I'm going to get over all this. I know I need to, and I know that 65 to 70% of network engineers, if you look at any of the data, like out of the network automation forum as an example, like there is so little programmatic stuff happening in networking, and we're the last holdout. And we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I know I've told you before, and I've said it publicly a bunch of times, but when I lost my job and re-entered the job market and realized, oh crap, I'm not cloud native, and I don't know, all this stuff. And I haven't learned automation, like, oh no. So I'm trying to continue to get that message out there. Like, don't have the experience I had and wind up back in the market and realize, oh crap. I know that everybody knows route and switch isn't enough anymore, yet if you look at the data, it seems like the majority of network engineers are like, route and switch is enough, and I'm not learning that Python stuff. I don't care. So anyway, I hope these struggles can kind of help not only me, but the rest of us who are holdouts. And you're a shining light. You were, like I said, 15 years ago when we met, you were automating all the things, and it was amazing. So when I got there, the ticket tool was new, but I was doing tickets the old-fashioned way in Remedy. So I don't know if I got hired right around when you started, but I did the old-fashioned way, 25 minutes of awfulness. Mm-hmm. And then Jeff's ticket tool was like, you filled out 4 fields and hit a button, and in like 30 seconds, 25 minutes of work happened. If you're listening to this and you can't see the value of taking 30 minutes of work and doing it in 30 seconds, like, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, this stuff isn't that hard. It's not that terrible. And there's really smart people like Max in the chat and Jeff who are going to help us. And Max has had some really good one-liners in here. Don't give up. It's, tonight was way better than you're giving yourself credit for. Think about the first time you heard of Ethernet headers. Like, this stuff is hard and it takes a while, and I don't know. I'm just going to try to be patient and get through this. But I really like your idea. I would love to put this more in a network context. So I'll keep hammering away at this. And if I just have a half an hour one night and do it, I might just jump on and stream it. And if anybody wants to, great. And we'll at least have that documented. But I think for the actual episodes that are interesting to network engineers and how to learn some of this stuff, I think doing it in the context of a base config is brilliant. I think that is way more interesting to me, and probably interesting to everybody out there, than like watching me just read lines of a very boring textbook. No shade on Eric. He's brilliant. But, to me, this is like algebra, and I was banging my head into the wall in high school when I was learning algebra. All right. I also want to see some of your vibe coding. So maybe next time, let's do what you're suggesting. I'd like to see some of your vibe coding stuff. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm not wasting my time learning Python, right? Let's just get that out of the way, because in my head, I'm like, I should just let ChatGPT do all this for me. And this is ridiculous. What am I doing? There's value in learning how this stuff works, right?
Yeah, it's the same as, let's say that you got out of network engineering and you got into something else. There's never just understanding how the internet works makes me when I'm working on a computer and something stops working, I immediately, all right, let me go try pinging the IP address. Okay, I can ping the IP address. All right, let me go ping the FQDN. Okay, I can ping that. So DNS is working. All right, I've got some other problem. Now, that is not even me doing my job. That is my wife telling me that the internet's down. Yeah, and I got to go and then figure it out. And, oh, okay, come to find out, it's just the web page she's going to, or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with starting at the basics of Python either, because those individual pieces add up to you understanding what's possible and what's not possible. The worst experience I ever had was I had a boss that wanted me to write some scripts for him, but he had never done any scripting. So all of the things he was asking for were either impossible or something that I was certainly not being paid enough to do. He was wanting he was wanting essentially this thing to be AI and and to solve the world's problems. When I'm like, that's not how it works. If garbage goes in, you're going to get garbage out. And I'm like, this script is not going to know what this switch is that the person isn't even logged into. If they're putting in a TE interface and it only has GIGI interfaces, it's going to try to drop that into the config. So stuff like that you need to understand it. Even if you're not going to be the coder, there's something beneficial in understanding under the covers, at least the basics of it. Like, I don't know anything about cars, and I have suffered as a result. I can't change my own oil. I can barely change my own tire, any of that stuff. I'm not a mechanic, but I can tell you, if I knew a little something about cars, it would probably save me time and it would save me money.
This is why friends make the world go round. I'll teach you about cars, you teach me about programming, and we'll become better people as a result of our friendship. Deal. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Folks who joined in the chat, thank you very much. I know I keep saying it. I hope that there's some value in this. I am learning little by little, and it's weary progress. It's really a slow slog for me. So, whether we keep doing these as episodes or whether we just spin this off as a separate YouTube channel and people can pop in as needed, I will do my best to edit these so that they are more interesting and less of me whining and trying to understand what the hell this sentence means. But, as always, we're here. We're trying to learn the thing. We're trying to improve our skills. We're trying to stay skilled up so that we can remain employed in this ever-changing technical landscape that we find ourselves in. So for all things network engineering, you can find us on our Linktree, Linktree/artofneteng. All the cool stuff is in there. Jeff, guess what? I updated some merch. Woo! We've been talking about it for a while. So we have a merch store that you can find in our Linktree. It's also embedded in this YouTube somewhere. I've been trying to figure it out. But I added a mug. What else did I add? There was a mug. I tried to add a bunch of things and had nothing but problems in this store. So I'm going to get more stuff in the merch store. I added a coffee mug and something else that escapes me right now.
You said shot glass. I think this Python episodes could be a drinking game. Every time Andy says, I hate this.
Oh my God.
By the end of it, everyone's sloshed. No one can go to work the next day.
That would be, I tried to do a pint glass and I was having a problem. But anyway, what I really like to call out in our Linktree is the Discord server. It's all about the journey, thousands of people in there. We're all helping each other. We don't have a Python channel. I think there's an automation channel. But anyway, there's every vendor, every cert, every technology stack, and everybody's in there helping each other. And honestly, just the general chat, just folks checking in, how you doing, what's going on, how are things. It's a really nice check-in. Luis, NetSec Wheezy in there, he's always checking in on me. He's done that for years. And I've told him this, that there've been some days I really needed to hear from a friend. And just the fact that somebody in our Discord server reached out and said, how you doing, meant the world to me that day. So if you don't have a community, it's one that you can check out. Linktree/artofneteng, all kinds of cool stuff in there. Jeff, where can folks find you, sir?
I mean, I'm not a big social media person. So if you just go to, I think it's fortojeff.com I think that just takes you to my LinkedIn page. Just go to LinkedIn. Look for me, Jeff Clark.
It's why you're so smart, because you're not wasting all your time on social media. You're like Cal Newport, the deep work guy. Like, social media is a waste. I'm not on it. I'm just learning cool stuff, and I'm a coding genius. You've unlocked the secret, Jeff.
I need to get better at that. I mean, at least if I'm going to be on here, I need to be able to, when you ask me that, be able to give you some kind of a link that people can go to. But
you're on LinkedIn. You're on 4digit. What is it? 4digit.com?
That sounds right.
All right. Jeff, as always, thanks for being here. Thanks so much for listening and watching and hanging out. And we'll catch you next time on the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Sugar honey iced tea. Guys, thanks for hanging in there. Max and Laz and Rob, and I'm trying to go through all the names here. I was looking in the chat as we were going through. I got about halfway through and got sad with the book, and then decided to look at the chat. And I love the input. Max, you get the prize for keeping me engaged and positive. And like all things, I feel like I should understand it more than I do, and then I get frustrated with myself. It's like golf. Jeff, do you golf?
I do. I don't golf well, but I golf.
Well, right. But every time I golf, and it's not often, but when I do, I'm infuriated with myself because I'm not good. And then people are like, well, how often do you golf? I'm like, I don't know, once every 5 years. Yeah. I don't have clubs. I never golf. But when I go, I think I'm athletic enough and coordinated enough, I should be able to hit this stupid ball straight. And it almost never goes straight. And I try to kill the ball, and then it slices everywhere. So when I'm not good at something, I get into this I get mad, which is silly. And that's kind of how I feel with coding. It's not.
But if you just read about golf, you definitely wouldn't get any better. And that's really my point on you've got to do it.
Of golf. Yeah, but see, if I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, if I just go in there and start writing Python code, I don't even know what to write. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Look through the book, and if it gives you variables, put those variables into something and write something silly. Like I said, I have scripts that are literally just for turning up devices in my lab, because I got really tired of going. First off, I had to go find the IP address. And so I was like, all right, well, I can go ahead and vibe code some kind of a bash script that will go and find the next available IP address that doesn't ping, and it'll spit that out to me. Perfect. Now I've got that one, because I'm not using any kind of IP address management in my lab.
That's what you would have. You'd have a little script, and it would just ping stuff to a found one, and then give it to you or assign it or whatever. Yeah, it's
silly and it's stupid, but it means I can send it off on that task while I do everything else.
No. Right. Yeah, I love it. I think the more networking context we can wrap around this stuff, the better for me, and probably the better for people listening to a podcast like Network Engineering. So I liked your idea. Let's do that. Let me know what I can do to help. I have some gear here if you want me to set it up. Or
yes, I would say for the next one, what I would like to have you do is, if you have like a Cisco switch or Cisco router, I want you to just look at what the base configuration you would ever put on that thing. So give it a host name, set up a management IP address, and set up a default route, and then try pinging the internet, right? If you can outline the steps for that, what we can do in the next video is we'll write a script that automates all those. And what it'll do is it'll prompt you. It'll say, what's the IP address? What's your default gateway? What's the interface is going to be your outgoing interface? Because that is a real world thing that could be used if someone had to do, 100 routers or 100 firewalls or 100 switches, and they had to deploy them out in the field. That's absolutely something that you could script and be done with in no time, because all I'm doing is inputting a couple of variables, and it puts the rest of the lines of code in there.
So here's an interesting follow-up to that. Why would you use Python and Bash or something like coding language as opposed to like an Ansible? I know you could use any of them, but to me, Ansible is simpler. And it might not be, but when I see it and I've tried it, I'm like, I can write a playbook, and it calls a config file, and it just seems simpler to me. But again, there's folks like you and Max, like, oh, dude, Python and Bash all day, that's what you should do. And in my brain, I'm like, well, why aren't we just doing Ansible? I know you could do either, but I guess Python's more powerful, right? You could do more with it.
So Python is just super versatile. So Python is really versatile, and it can be used in a bunch of places. I don't know that I'd say it's more powerful, because it's like saying a hammer is the best tool, right? I mean, maybe, depends on the job. I mean, if I have to put a screw in, no, it's not the best tool for that. So Python is the same way. It's I actually rarely write in Python, but Python is the one language that just has a ton of documentation. Like that's the real advantage. Is AI is great at writing Python, and there's a ton of documentation out there on it that you can find. So writing in Python, you'll always be able to find something that that's solve that problem.
I've heard people complain about Ansible that every time they change, I don't know if it's the core Ansible, like every time they update it, it like breaks playbooks. And I don't know, A, how true that is anymore, and B, if there's a corollary or a similar thing in Python. Like if they upgrade from 3.7 to 3.9, does it break your scripts? Like, is that just a coding thing? Or because I've only heard people complain about it in Ansible. Like, oh, every time they update it, it breaks all my playbooks. That seems kind of awful. Like to me, that's a reason to use Python. But if the same thing happens in Python, then it's
so Python's mostly backwards compatible, but there's a lot of stuff in like Python 3, for example, you couldn't run in Python 2 or Python. So you end up with some compatibility issues. If you're grabbing somebody else's script and they wrote it in Python 3 and you don't have Python 3 installed, then you got to go install that and all that. But it's really not usually that big of a deal. And again, for most network engineers, you're writing a script to automate a process that you have to do over and over and over again, right? And that's why I'm like, use whatever the fastest tool is for the job, unless you're being hired to be a programmer. And if you're being hired to be a programmer, then you're not currently learning programming because you should have already known that before you got hired. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the more use cases that we can find, like I just reminded me, because I know you automate stuff around your house. You had a script you would run to like kick the kids off the internet, which I love. Every time I come home, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, but every time I come home, I have to go on my phone and turn the home alarm off. I have to hit another button to open the garage door, and I have to hit another button to go into the thermostat and change the temperature. And like, and every time I leave, it's the same kind of thing. Turn the thermostat back down, close the garage door with my phone, and set the alarm. And I'm guessing there's some type of automation I could do. Maybe in Python.
You could run a free program called Home Assistant. You could use Life 360, which is a free program that has a Home Assistant tie-in. So when you arrive home, it sees, oh, Andy's a block away. Let me open the garage door. Let me turn on the front porch light. Let me turn off the alarm. And then Andy left, and let me go ahead and turn on the alarm, make sure the garage door is closed, turn off all the lights. And you can even set it up so it looks and says, Andy's not home, Andy's wife's not home, and
that's what I was going to say.
Home.
You just read my mind.
So we can go ahead and turn
this on. If I leave and my wife's home and it sets the alarm, we're going to have a problem. But I guess they've thought that through.
Yeah, and that's
figure all that out, and that's simple.
Well, you're building in logic, right? You're building in logic into your home and automation. So I'm doing a check. I'm saying, Andy leaves is a trigger. And then it says, Andy leaves. Is Andy's wife home? So it just does a check. Is Andy's wife home? Nope. Andy's wife's gone. All right. Okay. Is Andy's kids home? Nope. Andy's kids are gone. Okay. With Andy gone and the kids gone, I can go ahead and set the alarm.
Because you always hear that all the time. It really sucks if you have a guest over. Then the guest is still like a babysitter. Yeah. The guest isn't on the list.
I was at my buddy's house and he did that. He went and took his dog for a walk and I set off his house alarm because that's how he had his smart home set up.
But I think the more things that we can automate whose context matters in our lives, whether it's a router, a switch, some home systems, I think that would really, and everybody says that, but I still haven't done it. Like to automate something, to make something in my life easier or less friction. Having used automation, it's like, oh, wow, my life is better. This is great. So I like your ideas.
I think we're still live on YouTube, aren't we?
It's okay. Yeah. These are some good conversations. So I left it up just because we are live on YouTube. We haven't said anything bad. I left it up.
We should totally steal some of this, though. This is good content, Andy.
Well, that's why I'm still recording. So the textbook stuff got a little dry. I think we had some good conversations at the end. So I'll probably pull some of it in. I mean, a good episode is more of this kind of conversation and banging it around and having ideas and, and thought experiments and things. Reading a textbook, again, it's experimental in my eyes. It's not particularly compelling. I don't know if I would tune into something and listen to somebody read a textbook, but if it's something you're also struggling with, maybe, some of this will land. Before we hop off, Max is killing it in here. I love Max. He's my buddy in Discord. He's saying that Ansible is Python. And I remember it's running Python under the hood. So it's Python, but it's slow. And that's what he put in there. So Python's going to be faster. Ansible's running Python anywhere. What else does he say?
He talks about Ansible's very rigid, which is super true because it is. Yeah, it's meant to do 8 tasks in this order, which is also why it's not especially fast. I mean, you want fast, you're writing in Perl, and God forbid I ever look at Perl. I hate Perl, but with Perl you can do things. I mean, you can technically do threading in Python as well, which is where you're running multiple things at once. But
he just said idempotency. I don't know what that means. Idempotency. I see people say that all the time. Erica, the dev, just did a video on it. Do you know what idempotency means in programming? It's a word that every time I see it, I'm like, what?
I bet I can Google it, though.
He's probably going to write in there what it is. Getting fast.
Or they're all just going to laugh at us behind our backs.
It's fine. What else do I want to say to you before we hop off here? Must be getting tired. Jumped right out of my head.
Perform the same action multiple times has the same effect as performing it once. If you run an operation once, it changes the system to a certain state. I still don't understand why it's called that.
That's why you shouldn't use Ansible, because no one knows what the hell it is. So I have a question. If we use, so base config, I love it. And then my next iteration would be, okay, I got my base config down. Let me build some routing. Because when I'm usually standing up a lab, right, I might have 2 routers. So to your point, I got a host name, I got a management address, whatever the hell else I want in there. And then I might want to get, I don't know, BGP up between them. So like, let me get some peers up. So can I write a Python script? I'm sure I can, but could I write a Python script where I get, routing up between 2 routers, and then I can check that the adjacency comes up as an example? Like, can I see the BGP established? Like, are there checks in? Because like, I don't know if Ansible does it, but like, if you're going to push config, you're going to need validation. And is the validation done by a guy in the CLI after the script pushes, or can you?
I'll tell you what, it's not that's not the most real world is the problem. I mean, it's depending on the company. Most companies
pushing a config change isn't real world. Is that what you mean?
Pushing a config change and relying on the script to do it and do the checks isn't often. I shouldn't say it isn't real world. You're not typically doing that in Python. There's other tools you're doing that in that are just basic network automation tools that are built in. Cisco's got their tooons, and everybody's got their own tools for that.
Management.
What I'm saying is, where I used to use it a lot was, we had, depending on the company you work for, we used to have really strict change governance. I know you guys used to as well when you were working in FinServ. Strict change governance. You had to, I don't know if you had to do it quite. We had a change plan, a backout plan, and a validation plan, right?
Yep.
And if I did a lot of lifecycle stuff, so I would be taking old 2960s and I would be upgrading them to 9600s, right? It was a very similar process over and over and over, and I often had to take the base stuff here and put it into the new one, all the SNMP stuff and all the basic management IPs and all that stuff. So I would have to automate those. So what I wrote a script to do wasn't to log into the box and make the change. I wrote a script that created a change plan. It created a backup plan, and it created a validation plan. It then emailed those to me, because those email tie-ins, I could tie Python in with email. It emailed those as attachments to me, so that I then had my change plans written. So writing the change plan used to be the thing that took longer than doing the change, because the change plan had all the commands I was going to enter. So that meant on the night of the change, it was copy and paste. And then I could look for errors and do the engineer thing, which is you adjust on the fly as engineers do. So I would say for what you should start with isn't even the logging into a router or a switch with Python. It's writing your base configuration for it so that you can copy and paste that, because copying and paste is easy, right? And then you can look for errors in it. And then you move to, all right, I'm confident enough that this script has written enough of these that I've run it 10 times or 100 times and it works. Now I'm ready to have the script go into it. But I used to always encourage people not to run the script and have it go make the change until you know for certain that script has been run 1,000 times.
Right. Which I guess is what most people are like the DIY automation folks, same kind of thing. Write a script, test it 1,000,000 times, try it once in production, try it twice, keep rolling it out. It seems like it takes a long time, right? Like I know it's more expensive to buy into like a vendor management platform, but it seems like you can do more and do it quicker than, to your point, like, okay, we gotta test and validate the hell out of this before we can push it to production. And we're only going to do it to one box first. And where if you buy, vendor X's fabric management platform and they're like, well, it's integrated and it works and you press a button and it's magic. Like that just seems faster, I guess, than everything you just described?
It's just somebody else's scripts. I have a buddy of mine, Gil, that he basically talks about a GUI is just somebody else's scripts, right?
But scripts that the vendor validated on their equipment
Right.
a bajillion times in testing, you would hope, and not some guy wrestling with Python trying to figure out if it's going to melt, the world or not, I guess. Not to undersell people doing it themselves. Like I know plenty of people are.
But you've heard me use the term that I'm a selfish scripter. You've heard me say that before. And basically what I'm saying is I don't write scripts that are going to be used at the company. I write scripts because someone gave me a task that by the 5th time I did it, I'm like, I've been here for a month. You've given me this same task 5 times. I bet you're going to give me this same task 500 times. So I'm going to automate that. So I used to have to do at SunGuard, we would have to log into, we would first have to go into MPLS. We have to look at all the LSPs, and we would have to follow each of those to figure out if we had enough bandwidth capacity or if we were going to need to increase bandwidth. So if a customer would say, hey, I want to go from a 1 gig to a 10 gig on this switch, we would have to look across an entire LSP and say, do I have enough bandwidth for, to put this customer on there? Because SunGuard they were counting their pennies at the end. So it basically meant I had to run this, I had to go in, log in, and I'd find all the next hops I had to go do. And then I had to go hop by hop. Well, I wrote a script that basically gave me the first command that figured out all the hops. I could then copy and paste the results into the next part of the script that would then tell me the commands I needed to run to get everything else. And so I would then copy and paste that in. So I went from having this process, that was initially how I started, this process that used to take me, 15, 20 minutes, I was done in about 3 or 4, right? And then I ran that so many times that I knew I could trust the script. So I started automating the script so it would log into the box. It would run that first command. It would take the output from that router and put it in, because all I was doing at that point was really show commands. I wasn't making config changes. I was doing show commands. So stuff like that was a script written for me. And all I did was save myself a crap load of time. And at the time, I was a smoker, so what I really had was the option to just kick off a script and go smoke a cigarette. So that's what I essentially bought with that. I was a selfish scripter. I scripted for me. And then don't get me wrong, I gave it to other people and they used the script later on. It also meant that we were able to give this task that used to require a more senior engineer to junior engineers and have them do it so that the more senior engineers weren't doing the redundant stuff that was just time consuming. But again, I did that because I had a task I had to automate. Your home automation is a perfect example of something you do every single day, over and over. You do the same thing. If you can automate it, do it. You'll learn something.
I like what you've done too over your career that I've always struggled with. And again, if the data points that the low levels of network automation across our industry points to, it's a similar cognitive kind of trick we play on ourselves. You'll spend the time to automate, to create the automation for something and save yourself an enormous amount of time. And what I've always struggled with mentally is, and I don't think it's true, but it's a lie I would tell myself, but Jeff, I am so drowning in work. I gotta keep my head down and keep doing it the old fashioned way, I'm just trying to keep the lights on, man. And I've had different leaders at different companies tell me, you got to shift that mindset. You have to, basically you have to think like, Jeff, if you can put the work in up front. And for me, it was really hard. The amount of the fire hose of work coming my way and on all my team's way didn't seem to afford what I perceive to be the amount of time it would take for me to figure out how to automate this thing. You've seen me, take 15 minutes to get through 2.5 pages of very simple text, right? Like this stuff takes me a long time. So when I would see the time investment to figure that out, I would always just go, unless you're going to give me 2 weeks off of work and not, give me the next 7 maintenance windows off so I can learn this stuff, I could never make that turn. But it either came easy to you or you're faster at it, or you just made the decision, I'm going to automate this. And I don't know where you found the time, because I know we were super busy at Comcast. How did you find the bandwidth? That phone never stopped ringing during the day. Everything was always breaking. There was a ton of meetings. So, and maybe this is a conversation for another time, but when you're drowning in work and production and you want to automate things, and your leadership isn't backing off the gas pedal with the amount of work they're giving you, which I think is common in networking.
Yeah.
How did you find time to automate things? Because it takes time, correct? It's going to take more time up front. You're going to save in the long term. You said that a million times, and I believe that. But how long is it going to take me to figure the hell? Like, I'd still be working on a ticket tool.
Well, that was the thing, though, is the ticket tool wasn't something I created in one fell swoop, right?
Yeah.
The way it actually started was we used to have a list of email addresses and phone numbers for T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint. And then we would have AT&T East, AT&T West, AT&T Central, T-Mobile East, T-Mobile West, T-Mobile Central, different email distros. We had a whole database of that stuff. So the way that the ticket tool started was an Excel spreadsheet where I went in and said, what kind of tower is this? It's T-Mobile. Which region is it? East. And then it would look up the phone numbers and email addresses. That's how it started. And so the biggest thing I say when it comes to any automation is don't think about the big end result. Think about the little pieces along the way that you can automate. Perfect example of an automation I run. I use a program on my Mac called Keyboard Maestro. And one of the processes I have is my lab, because it's not a production environment, has the same static username and password for all my devices, so I can log in quickly and do that. I have a keyboard shortcut that does username, and then it hits the tab key, and then it puts in password. Now that saves me whatever amount of time the typing in admin and then p@55w. Now that's not really my password, but some crazy password in there. Whatever amount of time that saves me, let's call it 5 seconds. It took me, 2 minutes to figure out how to write that script, right?
Yeah.
And now I save 5 seconds 20 times a day. Right. So it's not about creating the end product. It's all about the journey, right? Yeah. It's about the little pieces that you can automate along the way, which is why I said I never wrote scripts initially that would log in and make a change. I wrote scripts that would give me the thing I could copy and paste in so that I could do that. That was what the actual next iteration of the ticket tool was it would copy that initial notification, which is, the BNOC has noticed a T-Mobile tower in the East region. We're investigating. SAMs will be sent out, whatever. Remember, we used to have to write those long emails. I automated that process, and all I did was I inserted the variables T-Mobile, East, and then investigating, and the rest of that email was the same. So, and that was just iteration over time. And that's why I said, even with the stuff you're looking at in the book, just a little bit that you learned today in what you were doing can absolutely be used to write very basic scripts, but it can automate things like log into something and put your password in, or build a base configuration for a switch or a router. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to get you the next job, but it's little bits and pieces.
If I can write a base config, because I've written a million base configs over my career. So if I could write a base config using Python, a very simple base config, a host, like you said, a host name, a management, whatever, I think that would be my second win. My first win was logging in, doing the chauffeur with Netmiko. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It worked. Holy crap. It's not super hard. I think if I can write a base config, so it's probably studying, supplementing it with some networking context, maybe a little bit of home automation stuff. And you so Max just put in the chat, and it reminds me what you always done. You say you make the time, you have to make the time because you have to. My excuse has always been I don't have the time. And then I think of things I've accomplished in my life, and I made the time, and that's discipline. I made a decision that I'm going to do something no matter what, because I can. Running as an example, I started running a couple years ago. I hadn't run in a decade for a million different reasons, but I started to run, and now I've made the decision almost every day. I'm going to get up and I'm going to run because it helps me. I feel better and blah, 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 blah. But that takes an amount of discipline. There was me for 10 years that said I can't run for 17 different reasons, including I don't want to get up early, or I'm tired, or I was up too late, or whatever. But the day I made a decision to make a change in my life, and then apply that will, I'm going to do it no matter what, which I guess is discipline. And you can apply that same thing, I guess, to this context. I could continue to do it manually and artisanally forever because I think it's easier. or I can make a decision, which is what I'm trying to do with this study live streaming. I'm going to make a decision to work on this until I get it, because I've given up so many times. So even though it's boring to watch and I freak out every time I do it, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get it, just like everything else I've learned or everything else I've decided to do that is hard and impossible. I almost quit my networking studies over, I think there were two things. Subnetting was one of them. I almost quit. I spent thousands of dollars and went to Netacad, and that was the only way I was going to get out of climbing cable guy poles and getting beat up and chased by dogs. And I hit subnetting and freaked. I'm like, I can't do this. It's beyond me. It's math. I don't get it.
Then the irony is you don't do a ton of it in your real job in the end.
And honestly, I still suck at it. Like, I mean, I can explain it at a high level, but like I was a WAN guy, so we use /30s everywhere. I can, if it's a 24, it's easy. I can see it. But once you get into like, well, what does a 17 have and how many things to them? Like, man, I don't know. And you're right. You don't use it. But I guess my point is there's like if you make a decision, it's anything in life, but I see how successful you've been in automating things, and I see how much I've struggled with it. And I think I've made the decision historically to not do whatever I got to do to be able to automate and make my life easier and buy more time, where you've just made the decision, like, I'm going to do this a million times. That's going to make me crazy. Pardon me. So I'm going to automate it. Where me, I've always gone to, but Jeff, there's 13 calls in queue and I got 4 tickets from last night and I'm on 2 fiber cut bridges. Like, when am I going to learn automation? But you just did. I was full of excuses of like why I couldn't. You didn't even think that didn't even cross your mind. You just did it. And I can see other contexts in my life where I've done that. I'm making a decision and I'm doing it and I don't care. And you succeed at it. So I think you have to make a decision to learn this stuff. And this is probably obvious to people, but for me, I don't think I ever made that decision until recently. And here we are.
And I think I might be the opposite of what you think. You think I'm disciplined and want to spend a bunch of time learning it. What it is I'm incredibly lazy and refuse to do the same thing over and over again. So
you've always said you're incredibly lazy, but I think you're efficient.
Like, yeah, and I don't mean lazy. What I mean is I get bored really easily. I had the worst job I ever had. I was in a boarding high school, and the job and I wasn't in trouble. It was just
you're in a boarding high school.
Yeah, so I haven't lived at home since I was like 16. No, that was the thing. It wasn't that kind of school.
Was it like a Blazer, and you were like little?
Almost, but no, it was a strict Christian school. We did that, but one of the things we did is it wasn't child labor, but we were children who were doing labor. What we would do is we would do things like the shirts that would get folded and they'd be put into plastic and then sent out to like Sears or whatever. We would be the ones that would fold those shirts.
Really?
Or we would take those little things that go on the back of a coat hanger that says XL, and we'd clip them on there. And it was basically factory work, and I hated it. I could never do the job. I could never meet my numbers. And there was no way to automate that because it was like someone was joking, why don't you write a script that changes your oil? Because I can't. If I could write a script that would change my oil,
someday
I
you just need a robot.
Someday with a robot, I will do it. But tech isn't there yet. But that was the worst job for me. And so the same thing has been true of me, even in networking, is there are times when you just have the same stuff that you end up doing, and they're just these redundant tasks. And I just refuse to do a redundant task that can be automated. We have the tech. And so I think what's happened is over time, by just automating everything in my life like that, I've just learned a bunch of different automating tools. Like I rattled off languages that I forgot that I knew because I end up still writing in using Visual Basic a ton. I write VB scripts constantly because I'm automating some stuff in Excel because everybody's constantly giving me tables that I have to look at. I'm like, I don't know what tables have to do with networking and with engineering, but somehow I spend half my life in Excel. So I write Visual Basic scripts to take these same things they give me and give me the data that I want. So it's stuff like that that I've always done because I just can't stand the redundancy. Whereas my wife, if you give her a task that is just the same task over and over, she loves that. She's in her Zen place. Yeah, I've often joked that if she could just go back to high school and do what I used to do, she would kill it But it was just never me. So I automate the stuff you can. But again, you don't have to write the end-all, be-all program. You write it in little chunks, and that's how you learn to program anyway. Is every program starts with a little bit that you do, a little bit of automation. And so when we do an episode on vibe coding, I'll show you how I write a program. I'll have to kind of come up with a task that I can do, but it's never the full program that I'm writing. It's always the little pieces. And it's the argument of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Programming is the same way.
Yeah, and honestly, now that ChatGPT's got so good, which has been a relatively recent event in our lives, for my entire production career, I didn't have a tool like that. Now I can ask, right? Like I could just go in and be like, how do I automate this? It'll probably give me, what do you want to do? What language do you want? Or do you just want to vibe it? And like, here you go. And so really there's no excuse anymore other than not making that decision. And I've only recently made that decision. I have a job where I'm in network automation. Again, my experience being out of work, I'm like, I need to upskill. This is ridiculous. How long am I going to complain about this? So for me, it was the pain of, not keeping my skills sharp, and the industry started to move, and I kind of, got left behind, so to speak. So here I am catching up, and I'm enjoying it. But I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. It's been great. I think we did 2 shows tonight, which I really appreciate, because the reading out of the textbook, I wasn't sure how it was going, but I think we actually got a good show. The
second show.
Afterwards.
You're welcome, everybody.
Now, I don't know how I'm going to edit this all together to make it one good show, but I think we have to do the second show first, so people don't listen to me reading a textbook and tune out and go, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm out of here. So thanks for hanging in here for 2 hours. It's been a pleasure for me.
For sure.
We already signed off, so I guess I don't have to do the sign off. Are we out of here? Is that it? Is it time to go eat ice cream and go to bed?
It's been 2 hours. Time for ice cream.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks for sticking with us.
Seeing you, Jeff. Yeah.
All
thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk soon, everybody.